I stood at the edge of the glittering ballroom, my champagne flute trembling in my hand, as Victoria Carter's venomous words sliced through the air like a guillotine. Uneducated trash. The words weren't just for me. They were for the entire room, a public execution of my pride in front of Portland's elite. My $15 million zero-cents media empire, Horizon Media, was teetering on the brink of collapse under a rival's ruthless sabotage, and now this? My mother-in-law had chosen tonight, of all nights, to strip me bare. The chandeliers sparkled above, their light mocking the darkness pooling in my chest. I was Chloe Bennett, 34, a woman who'd clawed her way from sleeping on a sagging sofa in a rundown Oregon fishing shack to the penthouse suites of Seattle. But in that moment, I was 16 again, hiding in a freezing warehouse from thugs who wanted to hurt me for daring to dream. My eyes locked with my husband Liam's across the room, his face pale with fury, but the silence of the other guests, their averted gazes, their polite coughs, told me everything. I was alone in this fight. Or was I? The evening had started with such promise. The Carter family's annual gala, held in their sprawling colonial mansion overlooking the Willamette River, was the kind of event that made headlines in Portland's society pages. It was a celebration of Sophie, Liam's younger sister, landing a coveted role at a top design firm, a milestone I'd helped make possible by funding her UX design certification. I'd spent hours preparing, slipping into a sleek emerald gown that hugged my frame, its price tag a quiet rebellion against the thrift store days of my youth. My auburn hair was swept into an elegant updo, and the diamond studs Liam had given me for our 5th anniversary glinted under the lights. I wanted to look the part, not just for myself, but for Liam, who'd always believed in me when no one else did. As we pulled into the mansion's circular driveway, the valet scrambling to open our doors, Liam squeezed my hand. "You're stunning, Chloe. Let's make tonight about Sophie." I smiled, ignoring the knot in my stomach. I should have known better. The Carter mansion was a monument to old money, its marble floors polished to a mirror sheen, its walls adorned with original Warhols and family portraits dating back generations. The air smelled of lavender and privilege, a far cry from the fishy tang of my childhood home in Seaside, Oregon. Back then, my parents, Mary and Tom Bennett, worked themselves to the bone, Dad hauling crates at the docks, Mom ringing up groceries at the local market. Our house was a weathered wooden shack, its roof leaking in the winter, its single bedroom reserved for my parents. I slept on a lumpy sofa, the springs digging into my back, dreaming of a life where I didn't have to count pennies for a new pair of shoes. I was 14 when I started stringing beads into necklaces, selling them at the farmer's market for a few bucks each. The first time a tourist handed me a crisp $20, 0 cents, I felt like I'd won the lottery. That spark, the thrill of making something from nothing, never left me. But tonight, as I stepped into the Carter ballroom, that spark felt like a liability. Victoria Carter, Liam's mother, was already holding court near the grand staircase, her platinum blonde hair gleaming under the chandelier, her sapphire gown a perfect match for her icy demeanor. She was Portland's Queen Bee, a socialite who chaired every charity board worth mentioning, her smile as sharp as a blade. From the moment Liam introduced us 12 years ago, when we were just high school sweethearts, she'd made it clear I was beneath her. "So, your father works at the docks?" she'd asked back then, her tone dripping with pity. How? Industrious. I was 17, wearing my best thrift store dress, my hands sweaty as I tried to hold my own. Liam had squeezed my shoulder, his hazel eyes warm with reassurance. But the damage was done. Victoria had marked me as an outsider, and she never let me forget it. Tonight she greeted us with her usual calculated warmth, air-kissing Liam's cheeks while barely glancing at me. "Darling, you look dashing," she cooed to her son, then flicked her eyes to me. "Chloe, that dress is bold." I forced a smile, my jaw tight. Bold was her code for tacky, a dig at my lack of pedigree. Liam, ever the peacemaker, steered us toward the bar. "Let's get a drink and find Sophie," he said, his voice low. He was trying to protect me, as always, but I could feel Victoria's gaze burning into my back. The room buzzed with Portland's who's who. Bankers, tech moguls, even a state senator. Each one a reminder of how far I'd come and how much I still didn't belong. My phone vibrated in my clutch, a notification from my COO at Horizon Media. "Urgent. Competitor smear campaign escalating. Call ASAP." I silenced it, my heart racing. Not now. Not tonight. Horizon Media was my life's work, a digital advertising platform I'd built from a corner of a rented apartment at 21. It was now valued at $15 million, 0 cents, with offices in Seattle and Los Angeles, employing 30 people who believed in my vision of personalized, authentic marketing. But the past month had been a nightmare. A rival firm, Apex Solutions, had launched a vicious campaign to undermine us, spreading rumors that we'd illegally harvested user data. The accusations were baseless, but in the court of public opinion, truth was irrelevant. Clients were getting skittish, and our stock was taking a hit. I'd spent weeks in crisis mode, reassuring my team and dodging reporters hungry for a scandal. Apex CEO Marcus Kane was a shark in a suit, a man who'd once tried to buy Horizon Media for pennies and hadn't forgiven me for saying no. Now, he was out for blood, and I was running out of moves. I pushed the thought aside as Sophie bounded toward us, her face glowing with excitement. At 24, she was the youngest Carter, her dark curls and infectious smile a stark contrast to her mother's froideur. "Chloe, you're here," she squealed, hugging me tightly. "I was just telling everyone how you made this possible." She meant her new job, a senior design role at a firm that worked with brands like Nike and Apple. It paid off her $50,000 0-cent student loan debt and funded a 6-month UX design boot camp, giving her the skills to land her dream career. Sophie's gratitude was genuine, a rare warmth in the Carter family. "You're the one who did the work," I said, squeezing her hand. "I just gave you a nudge." Victoria, overhearing, raised an eyebrow. "Yes, Chloe's quite the philanthropist," she said, her voice laced with sarcasm, throwing money around like confetti. I bit my tongue, a skill I'd honed over years of Sunday dinners at the Carter mansion. Liam's father, Henry, joined us, his silver hair and easy smile a welcome distraction. A real estate tycoon who'd built his fortune from nothing, Henry was the only Carter who seemed to respect my hustle. "Chloe, I read about Horizon Media's latest campaign," he said, sipping his scotch. "Their fashion brand deal was a master stroke." I smiled, grateful for the acknowledgement. "Thanks, Henry. It's been a tough quarter, but we're hanging in there." Victoria's lips thinned, but she said nothing, turning to greet a senator's wife with a dazzling smile. I caught Liam's eye, and he mouthed, "Ignore her." Easier said than done. As the evening progressed, the ballroom filled with laughter and clinking glasses, the string quartet playing Vivaldi in the background. I mingled, shaking hands with people who'd never heard of Seaside, Oregon, let alone the girl who'd sold necklaces to buy her first laptop. At 14, I'd sit at the farmer's market, my hands calloused from stringing beads, ignoring the snickers of wealthier kids who passed by. By 16, I'd faced worse than snickers. One night, a group of local thugs cornered me after the market closed, demanding I hand over my jewelry or pay the price. I refused, my heart pounding, and ran, hiding in a warehouse until dawn, the cold seeping into my bones. That night taught me something. Fear could either break you or forge you. I chose the latter. High school was where I met Liam, in our junior year economics class. He was the golden boy of Lincoln High, with his wavy brown hair and easy charm, his family's wealth a quiet hum behind every tailored blazer. I was the girl in thrift store jeans, always scribbling business ideas in my notebook. When we were paired for a project on market trends, I braced for his judgment. Instead, he leaned across the desk, his eyes bright. "You're Chloe, right? I saw you selling necklaces at the market. That's badass." Badass? No one had ever called me that. We aced the project, our late-night study sessions turning into something more. Our first date was at a diner where I'd sometimes bust tables, my cheeks burning when my mom appeared to take our order. Liam just grinned, charming her with stories of his summer sailing trips. He saw me, not my circumstances, and I fell hard. But the Carters were another story. The first time I visited their mansion, I felt like I'd stepped into a movie set. Victoria sized me up like a defective product, her smile never reaching her eyes. "What does your father do, dear?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "He works at the docks," I said, lifting my chin. "Oh, how quaint," she replied, the word landing like a slap. Henry was kinder, asking about my necklace business with genuine curiosity, but Victoria set the tone. Liam's siblings, Sophie and Noah, were polite but distant, mirroring their mother's cues. When Liam got into Stanford and I stayed behind, working at a coffee shop and teaching myself to code, Victoria didn't hide her relief. "A girl like that will hold you back," I overheard her tell Liam before prom. He shut her down, his voice fierce. "Chloe's the most driven person I know. She's going places, Mom." I clung to his faith in me, even when mine wavered. Back at the gala, the tension was building like a storm. My phone buzzed again, another urgent message from my team. Apex just leaked a fake report to TechCrunch. We're losing clients. I slipped into a quiet hallway, my heels clicking on the marble, and called my COO, Rachel. "How bad is it?" I asked, my voice low. "Bad," she said. 3 clients pulled out this afternoon. We need a counter strategy now, or we're toast." I closed my eyes, the weight of it crushing me. Horizon Media wasn't just a company. It was my proof that I was more than the dock worker's daughter Victoria saw. At 21, I'd launched it with $2,000, 0 cents in savings, coding the first version of our app on a second-hand laptop. By 25, we were turning heads in Seattle's tech scene. Now Marcus Kane was trying to bury us, and I was fighting on too many fronts. I returned to the ballroom, forcing a smile as Liam handed me a fresh champagne. "Everything okay?" he asked, his brow furrowing. "Work stuff," I said, waving it off. "Let's focus on Sophie." But Victoria had other plans. As dinner was served, lobster bisque and filet mignon, she raised her glass for a toast, her third glass of wine sloshing slightly. "To Sophie," she began, "whose talent and education have opened doors we're all so proud of." The dig was subtle but unmistakable, a jab at my self-taught path. Sophie blushed, glancing at me. "I wouldn't be here without Chloe," she said, her voice firm. She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. The room murmured approval, but Victoria's smile tightened. "Yes, Chloe's generosity is remarkable," she said, "though I'm sure Sophie's degree from Brown helped just a tad." I gripped my fork, the metal biting into my palm. Liam's hand found my knee under the table, a silent plea to stay calm. But Victoria wasn't done. As the main course arrived, she turned to me, her voice syrupy. "Chloe, how's that little tech venture of yours? I read something about trouble. The room went quiet, Forks pausing midair. She was baiting me, using the Apex rumors to undermine me in front of her guests. We're navigating some challenges, I said evenly, but Horizon Media's stronger than ever. Henry nodded, about to speak, but Victoria cut him off. Well, that's the thing with these internet businesses, isn't it? Here today, gone tomorrow. Not like a proper education, which lasts a lifetime. The words hit like a punch, but I'd heard worse. At 21, I'd faced a different kind of attack. A coworker at the coffee shop, jealous of my side hustle, accused me of stealing $500, 0 cents, from the register. The manager believed her, threatening to fire me and press charges. I spent days combing through receipts and security footage, proving my innocence, but the shame lingered. That betrayal taught me to trust my instincts, to fight for what's mine. Now, as Victoria's words hung in the air, I felt that same fire. Education comes in many forms, I said, meeting her gaze. Have learned more building a company than any classroom could teach. A few guests nodded, but Victoria's laugh was sharp, cutting through the tension. Oh, Chloe, resourcefulness is one thing, but refinement? That's another. Liam's jaw clenched, his voice low. Mom, that's enough. But Victoria was on a roll, her wineglass tilting as she gestured. I'm just saying, darling, there's a difference between scrappy startups and real success. Like Sophie's, or Liam's degree from Stanford. The mention of Liam was a deliberate twist of the knife. He'd left his banking job last year to join Horizon Media as COO, a move Victoria had called a waste of potential. I felt the room's eyes on me, judging, weighing my worth. My phone buzzed again. Rachel, probably with more bad news. But I ignored it. This wasn't about Apex or Horizon Media anymore. This was about survival. Sophie tried to intervene, her voice shaking. Mom, Chloe's company employs dozens of people. She's changing the industry. Victoria waved her off, her cheeks flushed. Oh, please, Sophie, it's social media nonsense. Anyone can do that. The lie was so blatant it stung. Horizon Media's campaigns had redefined how brands connected with Gen Z, our algorithms outpacing competitors like Apex. But Victoria didn't care about facts. She cared about status, and I was a threat to her carefully curated world. Henry cleared his throat, his voice calm but firm. Victoria, Chloe's results speak for themselves. Let's move on. For a moment, I thought he'd saved me, but Victoria's eyes glinted, and I knew she wasn't finished. The breaking point came after dessert, as guests mingled over coffee and cognac. I was chatting with a tech investor, pitching Horizon Media's resilience, when Victoria approached, her gait unsteady. Chloe, a word? She said, her smile brittle. I followed her to a quiet corner, bracing myself. She leaned in, her breath heavy with wine. You think you've won, don't you? Buying your way into this family with your little tech money, paying for Sophie's school, Noah's surgery, it's pathetic. I froze, her words a gut punch. I'd covered Noah's $100,000 0 cents heart surgery last year, no questions asked, when his insurance fell short. I'd paid Sophie's loans because she was family. I did it because I care, I said, my voice steady, something you might not understand. Her laugh was bitter, her voice rising. Care? You're a dock worker's daughter playing dress-up. You'll never be one of us. Uneducated trash. That's what you are. Get out of my house. Get out of our lives. The room fell silent, every head turning. Liam was at my side in an instant, his face white with rage. Mom, apologize, now. But Victoria raised her chin, defiant. Henry stood frozen, his eyes on the floor. Sophie gasped, tears welling, but said nothing. Noah, usually so vocal, stared at his shoes. The guests whispered, their pity worse than their judgment. I felt the weight of 12 years. Every slight, every backhanded compliment, every time I'd bitten my tongue for Liam's sake, crashed down on me. I set my glass on a nearby table, my movements deliberate. "Thank you, Victoria," I said, my voice carrying across the room, "for finally saying what you've always thought. It's clarifying." I turned to Liam, his eyes pleading. "I'm leaving. Stay and deal with your family." He reached for me. "Chloe, I'm coming with you." I shook my head, my heart breaking. "No, this is yours to fix." I walked out, my heels echoing in the silent foyer, the night air cool against my skin. As I climbed into a waiting Uber, my phone buzzed again. Rachel's text. TechCrunch published the hit piece, "We're hemorrhaging clients. What's the plan?" I closed my eyes, the world spinning. Victoria's words echoed in my head, but so did my own strength. I'd survived worse than this. I'd survive her too. The ride to our Seattle penthouse was a blur, the city lights streaking past like falling stars. I thought of my childhood, the nights I'd lie on that sagging sofa, listening to the rain and dreaming of a life where I wasn't defined by my parents' struggles. At 21, I'd taken a leap, launching Horizon Media with nothing but grit and a second-hand laptop. I'd faced setbacks, like the hacker who'd nearly destroyed us 2 years ago, breaching our systems and threatening to leak client data. I'd worked 72 hours straight, coordinating with cybersecurity experts, saving the company by sheer will. Marcus Kane had been behind that attack. I was sure of it, though I couldn't prove it. Now he was coming for me again, and Victoria had just given him the perfect opening. I reached the penthouse, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Puget Sound, a view I'd once thought would make me feel invincible. Now it just felt empty. I kicked off my heels, poured a glass of wine, and sank onto the couch, my mind racing. Victoria's outburst wasn't just about me. It was about her own insecurities, her fear of losing control over Liam, over her perfect family narrative. But what was Henry's silence? Why hadn't he stepped in? And what was Liam doing now, facing his mother's wrath? My phone rang. Liam, probably, but I let it go to voicemail. I needed space, clarity, a plan. Horizon Media was in crisis, my marriage was on shaky ground, and I was at a crossroads. Maui, our beachfront villa, called to me like a lifeline. Maybe there, away from the Carters and Apex's schemes, I could find answers. But as I sat there, the city glittering below, a darker thought crept in. What if Victoria wasn't acting alone? What if her hatred was tied to something bigger, something I'd stumbled into without realizing? I'd recently discovered we'd been paying for the Carters Golf Club membership for 3 years, a secret Liam had kept to spare their pride. What else was he hiding? And what did Marcus Kane know that I didn't? The questions swirled, each one a thread in a tapestry I couldn't yet see. One thing was certain, I wasn't the girl hiding in a warehouse anymore. I was Chloe Bennett, and I'd fight for what was mine. My company, my marriage, my worth, even if it meant burning it all down to start again. The Maui sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of crimson and gold, but I barely noticed. I sat on the lanai of our beachfront villa, the ocean's rhythm a steady pulse against the chaos in my mind. Victoria's words, "uneducated trash," echoed like a taunt, each syllable a reminder of the gala I'd fled 3 days ago. My phone lay silent on the teak table, its screen dark after I'd ignored another call from Liam. Horizon Media was crumbling under Apex Solutions' relentless attacks, and Marcus Kane's latest smear had cost us 2 more clients. I'd built a $15 million 0-cents empire from nothing, yet here I was, Chloe Bennett, 34, questioning everything. My marriage, my worth, my future. The villa's open windows let in the salty breeze, but it couldn't cool the fire in my chest. I'd come to Maui for clarity, but clarity was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not when a tropical storm was brewing offshore, and not when I suspected Victoria's hatred was only the tip of a much darker iceberg. The villa was our sanctuary, a 3-bedroom haven of glass and stone nestled on a private stretch of Maui's North Shore. Liam and I had bought it last year, its $5 million 0-cents price tag, a testament to Horizon Media's success. The open-plan living room spilled onto the lanai, where I now sat, the infinity pool shimmering like a mirror to the stars. It was meant to be our escape, a place to recharge from Seattle's grind and the Carter family's suffocating expectations. But tonight it felt like a fortress under siege. My laptop was open, displaying an email from Rachel, my COO. TechCrunch doubled down. Apex's report claims we faked our user data. Investors are panicking. We need you back. I slammed it shut, my hands trembling. I'd faced crises before, hackers, lawsuits, even a car crash I wasn't sure was an accident. But this was different. This was personal. I thought of Liam, his face at the gala, torn between fury and helplessness, as Victoria spewed her venom. He'd defended me, his voice shaking with rage, but Henry's silence had cut deeper. Why hadn't he spoken up? Henry, the self-made real estate mogul, had always seemed to see me, to respect the hustle that mirrored his own. Yet he'd stood there, eyes on the floor, letting his wife tear me apart, and Liam. What was he doing now? Was he still at the Carter mansion, trying to reason with a woman who'd never change? Or was he on his way here, desperate to fix what was breaking between us? I didn't know, and that uncertainty gnawed at me. I'd asked for space, but space was a double-edged sword, giving me room to think but also to doubt. My thoughts drifted to my childhood in Seaside, Oregon, a gritty coastal town where the air always smelled of fish and salt. Our house was a shack, its wooden walls warped by years of rain, its roof patched with tarps. My parents, Mary and Tom, worked themselves raw. Dad at the docks, Mom at the market, yet we never had enough. I slept on a sofa, my dreams bigger than the cramped space I called home. At 14, I started selling necklaces at the farmer's market, stringing beads under a flickering lamp. By 16, I'd learned the world wasn't kind to dreamers. A gang of local thugs had cornered me one night, their leader demanding I hand over my earnings. "You think you're too good for us, huh?" He'd sneered, his breath sour with beer. I'd bolted, hiding in a warehouse, my heart pounding as their footsteps echoed outside. That fear had forged me, but it also left scars. Scars Victoria's words had ripped open. I stood, pacing the lanai, the warm tiles grounding me. Horizon Media was my lifeline, proof I was more than the dock worker's daughter Victoria despised. At 21, I'd launched it with $2,000, 0 cents, and a second-hand laptop, coding late into the night while working at a coffee shop. A jealous coworker there had once accused me of stealing, nearly costing me everything. I'd cleared my name, but the betrayal stung. Then there was the hacker attack 2 years ago, a breach that could have bankrupted us. I'd fought back, working 72 hours straight, outsmarting the faceless enemy I suspected was Marcus Kane. But Apex's latest move was different. Calculated, public, designed to destroy not just my company but my reputation, and Victoria's outburst felt too convenient, too timed. Was there a connection? I shook my head, dismissing the thought. Paranoia wasn't a strategy. A rumble of thunder pulled me from my thoughts. The sky had darkened, clouds rolling in like an omen. The news had warned of a tropical storm, but I hadn't expected it to hit so soon. I grabbed my phone, checking the weather app. Storm surge expected, power outages likely. Great, just what I needed. I moved inside, securing the windows, the villa's sleek design suddenly feeling fragile against nature's wrath. As I locked the sliding doors, a memory surfaced, the car crash 6 months ago. I'd been driving home from a meeting in Seattle when a black SUV swerved into my lane, forcing me off the road. My car flipped, glass shattering, metal crumpling. I'd walked away with bruises and a concussion, but the police called it an accident. I wasn't so sure. The SUV had vanished, and Marcus Kane's smug face had haunted my dreams ever since. Was he capable of that? Or was I seeing enemies where there were none? The power flickered, then died, plunging the villa into darkness. I fumbled for a flashlight, my pulse quickening. The storm's howl filled the silence, rain lashing the windows like gunfire. I lit a candle, its flame casting shadows that danced like ghosts. My phone had no signal, typical for Maui's remote coast during a storm. I was cut off, alone, with only my thoughts for company. Sank onto the couch, pulling a throw blanket around me, and let my mind wander to Liam. We'd met in high school, our economics project sparking something neither of us expected. He was the golden boy, I was the scrappy outsider, yet he saw me. Our first date at a diner where I'd worked was a disaster. My mom took our order, mortified, but Liam's charm won her over. When he went to Stanford and I stayed behind, we made it work, our love stronger than distance. But Victoria never approved. "A girl like that will hold you back," she'd told him. He'd chosen me anyway. Now I wondered if he regretted it. Liam had joined Horizon Media as COO last year, leaving a cushy banking job to build something with me. It was a risk, one Victoria called foolish, but it had paid off. Our viral campaign for a fashion brand, highlighting real stories of body positivity, had boosted their revenue by 40%. We'd expanded to 30 employees, opened an LA office, and were on track for a $20 million 0 cents valuation. But success came at a cost. Victoria's resentment grew, her barbs sharper with every milestone. When I paid off Sophie's $50,000 0 cents student loans and funded her design training, Victoria called it buying loyalty. When I covered Noah's $100,000 0 cents heart surgery, she accused me of showing off. And when I discovered we'd been paying for the Carter's Golf Club membership, $30,000 0 cents a year for 3 years, without my knowledge, I felt betrayed. Liam had set it up, claiming it was to help his parents after a financial hit. Why hadn't he told me? What else was he hiding? A crash outside jolted me upright, the candle flame flickering. I grabbed the flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness, and peered through the window. A palm tree had fallen, its fronds tangled in the pool. The storm was worse than I'd thought. I checked the doors again, my nerves frayed. That's when I heard it. A faint thud, not from the storm, but from inside the villa. My breath caught. I was alone, wasn't I? I swept the flashlight across the living room, its beam catching the glint of a glass door. Nothing. Just the storm playing tricks. But my gut screamed otherwise. I'd faced danger before. Thugs, hackers, that car crash. But this felt different. Personal. I crept toward the kitchen, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. my bare feet silent on the hardwood. The thud came again from the guest wing. I froze, my heart hammering. The villa was isolated, a mile from the nearest neighbor, its privacy one of its selling points, but now that isolation felt like a trap. I remembered the stalkers hired by a disgruntled former partner at Horizon Media. 6 months ago, after I'd fired him for leaking trade secrets, he'd vowed revenge. Strange men had followed me in Seattle, their faces hidden under hoods, their presence a constant shadow. I'd hired bodyguards, but here, in Maui, I was unprotected. Had they followed me? Or was this Marcus Kane escalating his war? I reached the guest wing, the flashlight shaking in my hand. The door to the spare bedroom was ajar, though I was sure I'd closed it. I pushed it open, the hinges creaking, and scanned the room. Empty. But the window was cracked, rain seeping in, the latch broken. Someone had been here. Panic clawed at me, but I forced it down. I grabbed a kitchen knife, its blade cold against my palm, and barricaded myself in the master suite, shoving a dresser against the door. The storm raged outside, its fury mirroring my own. I checked my phone again. No signal, no way to call for help. I was trapped, not just by the storm, but by the weight of everything. Victoria's hatred, Liam's secrets, Apex's attacks. I sank to the floor, the knife in my lap, and let the tears come, not from fear, but from exhaustion. I'd fought so hard, for Horizon Media, for Liam, for a place in a world that didn't want me. Was it worth it? Or was Victoria right? Was I just a pretender destined to fail? Hours passed, the storm's roar softening to a dull hum. Dawn broke, gray and heavy, the villa a mess of fallen branches and shattered glass. The power was still out, but my phone had a weak signal. A voicemail from Liam waited, his voice strained. "Chloe, I'm on my way. I'm so sorry, we need to talk. Please, just stay safe." I deleted it, my anger flaring. Safe? I wasn't safe. Not from storms or stalkers or his mother's poison. But his words stirred something. Love, maybe? Or the ghost of it? We'd built so much together, from our high school dreams to Horizon Media's rise. I couldn't give up, not yet. I cleaned up the villa, my hands steadied despite the ache in my chest. The broken window was a problem, but I covered it with a tarp, my mind racing. The stalkers, the car crash, Victoria's timing, it all felt connected, a puzzle I couldn't solve. I called Rachel, my voice calm despite the chaos. "What's the damage?" I asked. She sighed. "We lost another client, but I've got a plan. We go public with our data logs, prove Apex is lying. It's risky, but it could turn the tide." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "Do it." "And Rachel?" "Dig into Marcus Kane. I want to know everything. If he was behind the crash, the stalkers, I'd find proof, and if Victoria was involved, I'd expose her too." By noon the storm had passed, leaving a bruised sky and a soggy lanai. I was sweeping debris when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. My heart leapt. Liam. I ran to the door, knife still in hand, but it wasn't him. A black SUV idled in the driveway, its windows tinted. My stomach dropped. I'd seen that SUV before, the night of the crash. I ducked behind the door, my breath shallow as a man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, his face obscured by a cap. He scanned the villa, then got back in and drove off. I waited, frozen, until the sound of the engine faded. Who was he? Kane's hired muscle, or something worse? I needed answers, but first I needed Liam. He arrived that evening, his face haggard, his suitcase abandoned in the foyer. "Chloe," he said, reaching for me. I stepped back, the knife still in my hand. Don't, I said, my voice cold. We need to talk, but not like this. His eyes widened, hurt flashing across them. What happened? You're shaking. I told him about the storm, the broken window, the SUV. His jaw tightened. Why didn't you call me? I laughed, bitter, because I was too busy surviving, Liam. Like always. We sat on the lanai, the ocean a quiet witness, and I laid it all bare. Victoria's words, the stalkers, the crash, the golf club payments. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice breaking. What else are you hiding? He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes distant. I didn't want to burden you. Dad's investments tanked 3 years ago. They were going to lose the mansion. I set up the payments to help, but Mom, she made me promise not to tell you. She said you'd use it against them. I stared at him, stunned. Use it against them? I've paid for Sophie's school, Noah's surgery, their damn European vacation. What more do they want? Liam's shoulders slumped. It's not about money, Chloe. It's about control. Mom's always been like this, manipulating, scheming. I didn't see it until now. His words hit like a revelation. Victoria wasn't just cruel, she was calculated. But why? What was the dark financial secret I'd stumbled upon last month? A cryptic email in Liam's inbox about offshore accounts tied to the Carters. Was it tied to her hatred, to Kane, to the crash? I didn't have answers, but I had resolve. We're done with her games, I said. No more Sunday dinners, no more playing nice. If she wants a relationship, she earns it. Liam nodded, his eyes fierce. I'm with you, whatever it takes. The next week was a blur of action. Rachel launched our counter-campaign, releasing Horizon Media's data logs to prove our integrity. The tech press ate it up, and 2 clients returned, boosting our stock. I hired a private investigator to dig into Kane, focusing on the crash and the stalkers, and Liam and I started video therapy, peeling back the layers of his mother's manipulation. He admitted he'd been her peacemaker since childhood, smoothing over her tantrums, excusing her cruelty. I thought I was protecting you, he said, tears in his eyes, but I was enabling her. I reached for his hand. Our love a fragile bridge we were rebuilding. Victoria called, her voice stiff with a half-hearted apology. I may have overreacted, she said, as if calling me trash was a minor slip. I cut her off. Words aren't enough, Victoria. Change, or we're done. She hung up, her silence deafening. Sophie and Noah reached out, their support a lifeline. Mom's wrong, Sophie said, her voice firm. Your family, Chloe. They planned visits to Maui, eager to escape Victoria's orbit. But Henry's silence lingered, a mystery I couldn't shake. Why hadn't he defended me? Was he complicit, or just weak? The investigator's first report came in, chilling my blood. The SUV from the crash had been traced to a shell company linked to Apex. Kane was involved, but there was more. A payment from the same company to an account tied to the Carters. Was Victoria working with Kane, or was she a pawn in a larger game? I didn't know, but I was done running. Liam and I decided to make Maui our permanent home, opening a Honolulu branch of Horizon Media. The villa, once a refuge, became a fortress, its ocean views a promise of a new start. Victoria and Henry visited a month later, her demeanor subdued, his apologetic. I failed you, Henry said, his voice heavy. I've let her control things too long. Victoria's acknowledgement was grudging, her pride bruised by our independence. You've done well, she admitted, eyeing the villa. I met her gaze, unflinching. Worth isn't about degrees, Victoria. It's about character. You'd do well to remember that. She flinched, a crack in her armor. Horizon Media hit $20 million 0 cents, our Honolulu branch thriving. Liam and I found balance, our love stronger for the battles we'd faced. The investigator uncovered more. Kane's conspiracy was real, but Victoria's role was unclear. We'd fight on, together, our boundaries firm. As I stood on the lanai, the ocean whispering its secrets, I knew one thing. I wasn't trash. I was Chloe Bennett, and I'd built a life worth fighting for.